is not knowing. It's an old trick by Zen masters, always trying to get us not to know. It's one of our more important koans is involved in this. And in not knowing, okay, we can really be much more intimate with the situation we're dealing with. In not knowing, I'm not really laying the trip that I lay on top of all of you, on top of this practice, on top of my job. You know, it's just not there if I don't know. In Zen, we've been accused of being ignorant. It's, you know, certainly by the Tibetan practitioners who certainly do know. But in our school, we really try and maintain this posture of not knowing. And I can forget this for years on end. But as a way of relating, a way of disengaging that which I know about people, a way of releasing my trip that I lay on top of all of you, is probably one of the more useful ways of relating to the world. It certainly is the best way to pass a koan, okay? Because now you take a look at a koan, it's like, oh, okay, it's that, you know. And you go into the zendo, or you go into the Doksan room with Roshi, you present it with Doan Sensei or Mike, you know, bring, you go out, that's not it. And you try it again, it's not it. You try it again, it's not it. You try and figure it out, it's not it. You know, after a while, you just don't know. And then in not knowing, but still really sitting with the koan and not knowing, you can slip right into it. And that's really the only way that, you know, certain of these koans you'll be able to pass. It's just giving up all hope and just sitting with it and not knowing what it is, going in totally baffled. But then you can really be. You know, there's a koan, what is inside the robe? You know, most intimate. You know, like, you know, okay. But what he wanted to say is, what is inside this robe? I don't really know. But that is most intimate. I can really be myself. I don't know what I am, I don't know what I'm doing, but then I can really do it. That's Roshi's style of teaching. I find out that it's different from most. He doesn't know what he's going to say when he comes up. I have to say that using that technique, he has proven himself to be one of the most dynamic teachers I've ever heard. I've heard a whole bunch of others, you know, sit there with their lectern, you know, and it really is tedious to listen to. Frankly, it's a nightmare. When you listen to someone who gives a prepared speech, I just don't understand. I don't understand how they can do it. But with Roshi's teaching of not knowing and really having the courage to enter into any situation and not know what's going on, that really is the teaching that I think Roshi presents, and he presents very well. It's also funny how we use this knowing, this trip that we let on people as a type of as a type of crutch. So we can actually present not knowing, we can live not knowing for a bit, right? We can do it, we're maintaining, I don't know what's going on, I'm fine, and all of a sudden the situation gets a bit more tense, a bit more serious, and I'll slip right back into, you know, the old familiar patterns of knowing what's going on, and you know, extrapolating this from that, and building my whole situation again. Now, I can probably make it through the situation, but I've done it as a dead guy. I've done it as some sort of robot who's not relating to the world as a living being. The scary thing about this is that I can spend a whole lifetime living as a robot, living a sequence of behaviors, each one following the other in, you know, somewhat rapid repetition, that I do over and over and over again. Just like some of the computer programs I've told you once before, that I would write little small things that if this happens, then do that. And it's like a hard code. Okay, there's no forethought, there's no relationship, there's no openness to the situation. There's just, okay, I see this red light, I do that. I see this green light, I do that. Don't even think about it. And certainly you can be aware, if you look into your own situations, how you'll do something just the same way. As soon as this happens, as soon as someone mentions your mother, as soon as someone mentions an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend or something like that, there's a definite pattern. Boink, 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 boink. And all of a sudden, everyone's all stressed out in the room or behaving in some other pattern. Do you know what I'm talking about when I talk like this? Okay. You know, this is the sort of thing that trying to live, trying to practice not knowing is a way of trying to break this pattern. So while we can sit, which is really nice, while we can try and be aware that, that I'm deluded, simply playing the game not knowing, trying to distance from the trip that I lay on over and over and over again onto the situations is one of the best ways of getting by. And I also wanted to mention Diane's work because it did, I really have a hard time with seeing this kind of Zen practice that we do now or this kind of things that I took to be therapy as part of Zen practice. I had a difficult time with it. And, but I've been able to see in doing some of it that, certainly while I've known that Zen is not just about sitting on a cushion, doing this work where it's working with others, okay, under Diane, I'm able to see that I spend so much of my time, what I'm trying to do on the cushion, I can actually see I'm refusing to even look at when I'm relating to others. When I'm relating to others, as I said before, when the situation gets a little bit more, stressful, fall back into old patterns. And I see what these old patterns are. I like looking at patterns when I'm sitting because it's totally comfortable, I'm totally safe. I just sit there and I can see what I am, and it's no big deal, okay? And I see channel me over and over and over again. I get kind of sick of it. Relating to others, all of a sudden we realize that there are all kinds of other patterns that need to be, I shouldn't say rooted out, but at least be made aware of. Like I act like this when I encounter this, and I act like that when I encounter that. And these patterns are not conscious. They're completely not conscious. Totally unaware of them as they're happening. And striving to be more aware, striving to be aware, this is a very important part of the practice, dealing with others, dealing with externals as it is, okay? So there is a unity of the two types of practice. I don't think they're any different. And, I wouldn't have said this before Christmas, but, I can't see how Zen practice has made it through the ages without having some way of training each of us to relate to others. It being such a major part of our life. The old masters would talk about living together in a sangha as a way of smoothing each other. They talk about how instead of like cleaning each potato one by one, they put all the potatoes in the bag, shake it, and then they by bumping up against each other, all the dirt gets rubbed off. Well, I've been living here a long time, and I know that just by bumping up against each other, people get hurt, and people quit, and people leave, And there's a lot of damaged people walking around who have lived in Zen centers, not just ours, especially, a whole bunch of other ones that people have written books about, And the ability to relate, if we just do so as a Sangha member, I think what happens in a somewhat tense situation, which being a resident can be, we tend to go back on our tried and true method of relating, i.e. laying our trip, rather than trying to be totally open. And I think this happens over and over and over again. So when you're shaking the potatoes, as they are, as the old teachers had said, it must have been rice they were talking about. I mean, they couldn't have been talking about potatoes. But stones? Was it stones?
Yeah, stones in the river.
What do they want to clean stones for? Get them shiny? Okay. I assumed it was for dinner or something. Okay. Okay. But you know what I mean? I mean, if you're just going to relate that way in a Sangha as a stone, bumping up against each other, we're going to probably, probability is we're going to do so not being open. We're going to do so laying our trips on one another and hoping to win the encounter. Okay? And